Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, Parliament demanded a budget from this Liberal government. Last night, a Conservative motion passed calling on the Prime Minister to table a budget this spring. The Liberals are asking Parliament to approve $500 billion in Liberal spending with no budget. Despite promising to spend less and cap government spending at 2%, they've increased it by 8%. Single moms, seniors, small business owners must budget before they spend. Parliament wants these Liberals to do the same. Will the minority Liberal government listen to the majority in this House and table a budget immediately?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this week was a great week for the London Knights. It was a greater week for the country of Canada. Every First Minister in Canada, from Quebec, from the provinces, from the territories, Government of Canada agreed on a plan to build Canada strong, one Canadian economy out of 13. That's what the country for.
The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Thanks for the update, but what about a budget? Canadians deserve real fiscal management, not excuses or fact-free talking points. And here's some of the facts. Liberal consultant spending is expected to rise 35% to $26 billion, breaking their promise to cut down on consultants. Fact. Wow. Liberals promised $20 billion in elbows up U.S. tariffs, but later dropped them with no regard to affected Canadian workers or fiscal impacts. Fact. The majority of this chamber voted last night for a spring budget. Fact. On what date will the Liberals face the facts and table a budget for their $500 billion in new spending?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the First Ministers agreed on a plan to build this great country. Stand up to Donald Trump. Fact. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada is imposing tariffs that cause maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada. Fact. On over $60 billion of U.S. exports to Canada. Fact. Raised over $1.7 billion already. Fact, fact, fact.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
$73 billion spent while Parliament was shut down by this government. A spending package of $500 billion with a record $26 billion for Liberal-friendly consultants like McKinsey, and no oversight or scrutiny from Parliament. Well, this House has had enough. Last night, the House passed our Conservative motion calling on the Prime Minister to table a spring budget. Will the Prime Minister respect the will of Parliament and table a budget immediately so Canadians in this Parliament can have the transparency we deserve?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take note of last night's motion. But what Canadians deserve, what Canadian provinces deserve, is a health care transfer, is a transfer for child care, is a transfer for dental care, is a transfer to support affordability. That's what's in the main estimates, and we expect the support of members opposite.
The Right Honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, I realize he's new here, but all those things would be in a budget. Mr. Speaker, this year alone, this government is going to spend a staggering $26 billion on high-priced, Liberal-friendly consultants, an eye-watering $1,400 for every Canadian family. They'll present no budget, no departmental plans, and zero transparency. They won't even stand in this House and tell Canadians what the deficit will be this year. Will the Liberals come clean, table a spring budget as this House has demanded?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the member opposite, I know the difference between main estimates and budget. Unlike the member opposite,
sure you do, you clown.
I know how to grow. Unlike the member opposite,
You don't know how to do shit besides destroy countries. You're a fucking clown. Shut the fuck up and table a budget, you worthless piece of shit.
whenever things, colleagues, whenever things get to the point where I can't hear, that's when I stand up and halt time. So would the Right Honourable Prime Minister like to back up a bit and take another run at it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will speak softly. Unlike the member opposite, I know the difference between a main estimate and a budget. And unlike the members opposite, we know how to grow this economy without spending money. And that's why we're proposing a bill to build one Canadian economy out of 13. And all the provinces and Quebec agree. Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, our motion calling on the government to table a budget this spring was passed yesterday. So the Liberals have to respect this Parliament and table a budget this spring. The Liberals want a blank check, and they want approval to spend over $1.5 billion without us knowing what the financial situation really is. During the election campaign, they promised to limit spending to 2%, but instead they're increasing it by 8%. This government has already shown that they deceived Canadians. Will the minority Liberals listen to the majority in Parliament and table a budget this spring? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, motion, we take due note of the motion, but we agreed with the Premier of Quebec that the best way to increase growth in Canada is to have one Canadian economy, not 13. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister probably didn't understand my question. The motion calls on this Liberal government to table a budget this spring, and they've only got 18 days left to do that. A good responsible manager uses a budget to determine what the spending capacity is. If our families, seniors, and SMEs acted like this government, they'd be bankrupt. The Liberals said they wanted to cut spending, but they're increasing consulting contracts to $26 billion. The Liberals must listen to Parliament. When will they present a budget to justify their $500 million in spending? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there will be a budget. A budget that will increase support for seniors, for children, for child care, for all of Canada. But for the time being, we will be boosting growth in this country with a bill to create a strong economy. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I'm curious. Yesterday, there was a bit of a love-in Saskatoon. There are stages to a love-in, but at that love-in, there was an interesting project that would be for a pipeline to take oil not from Alberta to St. John, New Brunswick through Quebec, but rather to Hudson's Bay. So what does the Prime Minister think of that odd proposal? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There were a lot of projects that we discussed yesterday in Saskatoon. Yes, it was a big love-in because all the premiers want to work hard and to keep working hard for our country and for our economy. And those projects include major projects in Quebec, in critical minerals, and green energy. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Last time there was such a big love-in was in Quebec, and a lot of people were taken by that. We remember that. I don't remember ever seeing Mr. Trudeau and Ms. Smith meeting in any kind of paradise. But is there any effort being made to find a market in Europe, or is there any effort being made to develop refineries to refine heavy crude in Western Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we haven't decided yet what projects are in the national interest. We had a big conversation. Yes, it's true. Can I keep going? Mr. Speaker, there has to be standards, environmental standards, and it has to have a big impact on the growth of our economy. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. That's not saying much, but there was one thing I saw. Will the Prime Minister officially commit to respect the Quebec Environmental Assessment Agency if Hudson's Bay is not an option? Will the Prime Minister commit to respect the decisions of the BAP, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, I discussed this with the Quebec Premier and the other premiers. We discussed the possibility and, in fact, the need to have commitments and to have cooperation agreements when it comes to environmental standards. We will conclude those deals in the months to come.
Mr. Speaker, last night this House delivered a clear verdict. The Liberal government must table a budget. Now, this Prime Minister is asking Canadians to blindly approve over $500 billion in spending with no plan, no transparency, and no accountability. This Prime Minister has promised to cap spending at 2%, then shattered that promise and jacked it up by 8%. What do Canadians get in return? Soaring debt, higher inflation, and zero economic leadership. Will the government stop the reckless spending, respect the will of this House, and table a budget?
Excellent question.
L'honorable Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, there was a vote yesterday, but there's another vote coming in the coming days, Mr. Speaker. This is a vote where we'll see the true color of the Conservative, Mr. Speaker, because this is the motion in which we're cutting tax for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Canadians who live in Ishmael, they will be watching at home to see will the Conservative be there to have the back of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you we'll be watching from this side. Canadian will be watching at home, and we all expect this House to say together, yes, we have the back in Canadian, and we'll give them a tax break.
Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Last night, our Conservative motion passed demanding a budget from this Prime Minister this spring. After a decade of Liberal delay and decline in Northwest Territories, their economy is in trouble. Since 2015, mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction down 16%, construction down 43%, the energy sector down 54%. Economist Graham Clinton writes, as the mines close over the next 3 to 8 years and nothing replaces them, we can expect a much smaller economy than we have today. The Northwest Territories can't afford any more of your empty promises, Prime Minister. What's your plan?
L'honorable Ministre des Finances.
Speaker, on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we understand that Canada's strength when it comes to the economy of the future. Mr. Speaker, we're attracting talent. We have very large industry. This is a country that builds cars, that builds planes, that builds automobiles. Mr. Speaker, this is the country which has critical mineral. This is the country which has renewable energy and conventional energy. This is the only country of the G7 which has a free trade agreement with all the other G7 nations. Mr. Speaker, we have what the world needs, and we'll be there to build a superpower economically for this country and Canadians and for generations to come.
The Honourable Member for Kapuskasing, Timmins, Mushkegowuk.
Mr. Speaker, Parliament is demanding a budget from this Liberal government. For example, to cap spending at 2%, they increased it by 8%. Rather than cut spending on consultants, they increased it by 35%. To a record-smashing $26 billion. Last night, a Conservative motion was passed calling the Prime Minister to issue a budget this spring. The Liberals are asking Parliament to approve $500 million in Liberal spending without budget. Will the minority Liberal government listen to the majority parliament and issue the budget immediately.
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister said, we take note of the vote yesterday. But, Mr. Speaker, what I can say to the member, and I welcome into this House, let's focus on what the main estimates are doing for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. They're supporting childcare in this country, Mr. Speaker. They're supporting pharmacare in this country. They're supporting dental care, Mr. Speaker. What they're doing, they're supporting Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have asked this House to work for them. Canadians have asked us to be ambitious. Canadians have asked us to build Canada strong.
And
this
we
is what
also
we're going
ask
to
you
do with
to
this
have a
Prime
budget.
Minister.
Are you going to have a budget?
The honourable member for Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the House has spoken. Parliament is demanding a budget this spring. The Liberals have already broken their promise of a spending cap. A budget is more than a big book of spending. It tells us how much it's going to cost. How much are they going to raise taxes? How much are they going to borrow? The Liberals have no plan to manage the debt. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberal minority government listen to the majority of Parliament and table a budget this spring?
The Honourable Minister of Transport and Internal Trade.
Mr. Speaker, our government does have a plan, and that plan is what we discussed yesterday in Saskatoon with the premiers from across the country. I do have to agree with the leader of the bloc. It was a love-in, and it was a love-in because the premiers, Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, agree now is the time to build Canada, to build one Canadian economy. It will add $200 billion to our economy. All of us in this House should support that.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton, the Kitchewan.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday our motion to have the government table a budget this spring was passed here in this House. The Liberals wanted us to approve $486 billion of spending with no plan. $20 billion of that revenue was supposed to come from the elbows up counter tariffs, but secretly during the election, the Prime Minister and Cabinet signed the order to cancel them while telling Canadians they were still going to fight with dollar-for-dollar tariffs. So, will the Prime Minister listen to Parliament, table a spring budget, and explain where the extra $20 billion is going to come from?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's meeting was a great show of national unity. It was a proud day for Canadians. In the words of Premier Ford, when our country comes under attack from President Trump, we unite and we're a resilient country.
That traitor,
and everyone realizes that if we don't move, we'll be left behind, and the consequences will be 10 times worse. Canada's new government is acting to make Canada an energy superpower. It would be great if the Conservatives helped us in this.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, good news. Last night the Conservatives passed a motion calling on the Prime Minister to issue a budget this spring. This is Trump is threatening to double the tariffs on steel to 50%. That would put Hamilton Steel and steelworkers out of business. The Prime Minister promised he would collect $20 billion in tariffs from the United States. There's no $20 billion, there's no tariffs. Will the Prime Minister listen to Parliament, table a budget, and show us how's he going to make up that $20 billion?
L'Honorable Ministre de l'Industrie.
Speaker, at a time where we are in a trade war and we know that our steel and aluminum workers are worried, we're standing up for them. And we will continue to make sure that we fight by having strong counter-tariffs, that we protect our workers, and we will build through very strong, major national projects. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'Honorable Député.
The Honourable Member for
Charlie is the biggest retard of them all.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's the tariffs are jeopardizing the jobs of thousands of steel and aluminum workers, but the Liberals are still refusing to comply with the majority motion of the House. They're abandoning, secretly they've turned their backs on these counter tariffs when the U.S. President is threatening to double them. Will the Liberals show respect for the majority of Canadians and the majority of Parliament and table a budget this spring, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, one thing is clear. Canadians, the majority of Canadians voted for us. But beyond that, what's important for my colleagues to understand is that we are there to support workers in the aluminum industry. The Prime Minister and I myself have committed to speak to players in the aluminum industry and the steel industry and the unions. We've been there since the outset with this tariff war, and we imposed counter tariffs, we fought, and we're also committed to protecting workers and building Canada. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, instead of talking about pipeline projects that belong in the last century, the Prime Minister should have been talking aluminum with his counterparts. Tomorrow we find out whether Donald Trump follows through on his threat to double tariffs. But support for our industry was not on the agenda at the Premier's meeting. Not a word in the budget either. Aluminum has been hit with tariffs since March. They'll probably double tomorrow, and the Liberals have still not offered any help. We have a right to know now. What's the plan if the tariffs are doubled? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, on Sunday night I was in Montreal at the Aluminum Summit. We spoke with stakeholders in that industry and the Quebec Industry Minister. Obviously, what's happening with aluminum is very worrisome, and so we will be there to help both companies and workers and unions. We are going to use Canadian aluminum and steel in our major infrastructure projects. We're going to defend our industries and jobs in those industries, and we will also diversify our international trade. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte-Acton. Mr. Speaker, when Ontario's auto industry was threatened with tariffs, Ottawa rushed in with $2 billion. Quebec's aluminum industry has been hit with tariffs for 3 months now, and yet not a penny of support has been given. Ottawa should already have provided direct assistance to the industry and redistributed the proceeds of the counter tariffs. In 24 hours, Donald Trump could double his tariffs and still nothing for Quebec aluminum. The Liberals were elected on tariffs. How come they're not ready today? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Contrary to what my colleagues said, I was in Bécancour just 2 weeks ago to meet with the leaders and union leaders and workers. I met with Rio Tinto Alcan because obviously this is of concern to the Lac-Saint-Jean area. So we are protecting our investments and jobs. And there's also money being provided through the regional economic development agencies in Quebec and in my colleagues' riding. We are creating jobs and supporting businesses as we speak.
Lloydminster Meadow Lake.
Mr. Speaker, for a decade, the Liberal government's anti-energy agenda has driven away Canadian jobs and investment. The consequences is clear. Building energy projects will boost our economy, reduce reliance on the United States, and create good-paying jobs for Canadians. Yet, the only thing still standing in the way is this Liberal government. At a time when our economy needs strengthening, will the Liberals finally approve and build a pipeline?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Prime Minister and the Premiers agreed to work together to accelerate major projects in order to build a strong, resilient, and united Canada. A Conservative Premier, Premier Ford, said, "This has been the best meeting in 10 years. Canada's new government will fast track projects of national interest, guarantee decisions within 2 years, while respecting Indigenous rights and the duty to consult. There is no question this government will make Canada an energy superpower. I hope you'll get on board."
The Honourable Member for Battleford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake.
Mr. Speaker, it is this Liberal government's anti-energy policies that are blocking critical energy projects in this country. C-69, no new pipelines law. C-48, the shipping ban, the job-killing oil and gas cap, and the industrial carbon tax, all of which are driving away investment and killing Canadian energy development. If the Prime Minister is serious about his so-called build, baby, build, will the Liberal government repeal its anti-energy agenda to get vital energy projects built?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
If the honourable member was listening to the Premier of Alberta yesterday, she talked about a grand bargain. She talked about a grand bargain to build our energy superpower in a responsible, environmentally responsible way in consultation with First Nations. We hope you'll get on board.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Speaker, help me square a circle here. Canadians were told that the Liberal Party had changed. They heard that a new government under this Prime Minister would bolster Canada's resource economy so that we can compete toe-to-toe with the Americans. Just 1 month later, Canadians see how empty those promises were. The No New Pipelines law, the shipping ban, the job-killing oil and gas production cap, and the industrial carbon tax all remain in place. When will the Liberal government repeal their damaging anti-energy agenda so that private energy investment will reignite in Canada?
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Clearly, they were not listening to the premiers yesterday. We met and they said, I'll quote Premier Holt, I think this is a critical time for unity, and I couldn't agree more. We will work with the premiers, Indigenous peoples, and we will fast-track projects and guarantee them done within 2 years. We support new pipelines if there is a national consensus. We will work together and we will make Canada an energy superpower.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent Killarney. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, more and more people are in favor of building pipelines. And it's not surprising. We've had pipelines in Quebec since 1942. And in 2012, a pipeline was built from Lévis to Montreal. It crosses the St. Lawrence. And it's so effective and safe that no one even seems to know it's there. But what we do know is that building energy projects helps the Canadian economy thrive. I have a question for the Minister of Heritage. Will he say yes to pipeline projects in Quebec and Canada? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, my colleague should be proud as a proud Canadian. Yesterday we had a great day for Canada. The Quebec Premier was there with his colleagues, and we talked about Canada energy corridors to make Canada a global energy superpower. Quebec has a great deal to offer Canada in this regard. It has expertise in hydroelectricity. It also has expertise in wind energy and environmental measures. We will become an energy superpower in a responsible and fair way. Together we will build Canada. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage should know that pipeline number 1 is a historic site in Canada. It led to the Canadian oil boom. The Minister of Heritage should be proud of this heritage. Earlier, we heard the Minister talk about hydro. Does he know that Bill C-69 gives the federal government veto power on hydro projects? How can Canada develop to its full potential if the federal government doesn't stick to its own business? The Honourable Minister of Finance. I'd like to thank my colleague. Yes, Quebec has an important role to play. It will be able to develop to its full potential in the area of hydro. It is a North American leader, and even global leader, in hydroelectricity. We should all be proud as Quebecers to follow Quebec's example. We should be proud of the fact that we can develop our natural resources in a fair, responsible, and effective manner. Quebec has always been an energy leader. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to draw inspiration from that. Thank you.
Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma.
Speaker, as I rise today, I want to wish my wife, Lisa, a happy 25th wedding anniversary. We're celebrating today. My wife and I live in Sault Ste. Marie, a border town, a very busy border town. And just as business never stops, so too the threats. Threats from transnational organized groups. I want to know if this House is ready to hear some really good news. from the Minister of Public Safety about a new act, the Strong Borders Act. Can the Minister update this House on how this bill will continue to make Canada strong?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank the Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma for his question, his hard work. Of course, I too want to wish Lisa a happy birthday. He knows that a strong border means increased security and prosperity. The Strong Borders Act will combat organized crime, protect the integrity of our immigration system, equip law enforcement with the tools they need, and yes, strengthen our border. Strong borders mean safer streets, Mr. Speaker. Canada's new government is cracking down on fentanyl, auto theft, guns, money laundering, irregular migration, and organized crime. We will always be there to protect Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister committed to more rhetoric, more lofty words, and no actual pipeline or energy infrastructure project. Alberta's heard all this before. We don't need headlines. We need results. Get our resources to market. Repeal the tanker ban. Repeal the pipeline ban. End the job-killing production cap. Will every Liberal member of Parliament commit to doing this today?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
If they were listening to yesterday, there is a grand bargain. There is a bargain that the Premier of Alberta has signed on to. We will build, we will do it responsibly, and we will do it in conjunction with Indigenous partners. It would be really great if you guys wanted to do it the same way.
Just remind the Minister to address the Honourable Members through the Chair. The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
The Prime Minister has a choice, Mr. Speaker. Break from Justin Trudeau's legacy or double down. He can get rid of the pipeline ban today, the shipping ban today, the production cap today. So let me ask again, will the former radical environment minister, the Greenpeace activist once arrested in my riding, and now the Minister of Canadian Identity, stop attacking the very identity of Canada itself?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was an incredible day for the country. Yesterday was a day where 13 provinces and territories, plus the Prime Minister, got together to talk about significant national projects so we can build this country, so that we can build it with the great men and women in our skilled trades, so we can build it with great Canadian steel, so we can build it with great Canadian aluminum. Build we will do, Mr. Speaker. It is time to build.
Oh, look, your elbows up, retard Prime Minister has fucking left. The questions got too hard for him. You're still elbows up, you liberals fucks. Can't even be in here. Take questions. You're useless.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals invited millions of migrants into Canada, knowing full well they didn't have the economic and social infrastructure to support them. Now Canada has a massive housing crisis, endless healthcare wait times, and countless Canadian youth without jobs. Newcomers themselves aren't to blame. It's the Liberals who misled everybody about Canada's capacity to absorb millions, especially under their government's economy-killing policies. Millions of people are now in Canada with expired or imminently expiring visas. How is the government going to ensure that they will leave?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to my colleague for that great question. Today is a great day in the country. We introduced a very important bill that getting us to take steps to strengthen our immigration system and our integrity in the system while also upholding our humanitarian commitments. So as global migration patterns evolve due to conflicts and crisis, Canadians expect a resilient and responsive immigration system, and that is exactly what we are doing.
Kick them all out. Get them
Honourable
fuck
Member for
out.
Calgary Nose Hill.
So just to reiterate, by the end of this year, nearly 5 million people will be in Canada with expired or expiring visas, and the government has no plan on how they're going to get them to leave. We have a housing crisis, a youth jobs crisis, healthcare wait time crisis. And knowing this,
the Liberals have already issued nearly 177,000 new temporary foreign work permits this year, a 10% increase from the last quarter. That's the same amount of people as Kelowna. Well, with a youth unemployment crisis, why did the government increase the number of temporary work permits this year?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, we take our immigration system very seriously.
Sure you
on
do.
this
That's
side
why
of
you
the
let these
aisle,
fucking
as I know
morons
most all
in our
Canadians
country
do.
rioting
And
on
for
our
that
street.
reason, we are strengthening the integrity of
Yeah,
our system
fucking retard.
while maintaining the
Send them
humanitarian
all fucking home.
ability that we have in this country. Make no mistake, Canada takes its obligations seriously, and we are strengthening our asylum system to make it more efficient and more efficient and flexible. And we will be doing exactly that.
I'm sure you will. Send them all home.
The Honourable Member for Charlottetown.
Rioting on our fucking streets, killing our people. Get them the fuck out of here.
We learned that asylum claims at Saint Bernard la Croix have gone up by more than 330% between April 2024 and April 2025. Currently, there are more than 600,000 non-permanent residents within Quebec, and this is placing pressure on French services, schools, childcare, and other public services throughout Quebec, especially in the Greater Montreal region. And that is also something that is putting pressure on the housing system throughout Quebec. Is that why the government won't present a budget, because it doesn't have an immigration plan?
Minister of Public Safety.
Merci pour la question.
Yeah, you give them all our fucking paychecks.
Just address the issues around the border and the strong.
Excuse me, I don't think the mics are on. Is that? Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear it here, but anyway, would the minister like to start over?
Merci pour la question. Mr. Speaker, the Strong Borders Act that I introduced this morning will ensure that our borders are stronger and Canadians are safe. The strong borders means safer streets. Canada's new government is cracking down on fentanyl, on guns, on auto theft, money laundering, irregular migration, and organized crime. We will be there to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
You ain't fucking protecting us. We'll protect ourselves before our government fucking protects us.
Ce qu'on a besoin de savoir, c'est ce qu'on a géré du passé, la mauvaise gestion des libéraux. Il y a 6 mois à peine, on apprenait qu'il y a 4,9 millions de personnes sur le territoire canadien qui sont à...
Even the translator's not even fucking doing her job? She must be a fucking liberal if she can't do her job.
Checking interpretation.
Oh, now you're talking?
I'm just testing the system. We will start over with that question. The Honourable Member for Charles-le-Beau-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker,
do your fucking job.
The Minister needs to understand that what we need to do now is fix the problems that the Liberals have been creating for 10 years. 6 months ago, we learned that 4.9 million people in Canada are on temporary visas, but we don't know how many have left the country or haven't left the country and should. So can the Minister tell us what the government's action plan is in order to ensure that people whose temporary visas have run out, how is he going to make sure that they leave Canada?
Minister of Public Safety.
Once again, thank you for the question.
Let me just at the outset say that the numbers that are cited are completely out of whack, and they're not, they're being miscited here. For the record, Mr. Speaker, we introduced the Safer Borders Act this morning. This is a very strong measures to ensure that our borders are safer. It's in order to combat organized crime, protect the integrity of our immigration system, equip law enforcement with the tools that they need, and yes, to strengthen our border. We will always be there to protect Canadians.
Close the fucking border.
Member for York.
Send them home.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For first-time home buyers, the dream of home ownership has become a nightmare of debt and default. New Liberal housing data shows that nearly 1 in 5 new homeowners missed a mortgage payment, 1 in 4 are using debt to pay for debt, and over 60% are concerned they won't be able to make any payments at all. With no budget and no plan in sight, but over $500 billion in new proposed spending, can the Minister of Housing tell first-time home buyers how much their mortgage payments will increase because of this government's inflationary spending?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member opposite for giving me an opportunity to highlight the importance of our GST cut for first-time homebuyers. We will be moving forward with the GST cut up to $50,000 on homes up to $1 million.
Wow, that's great.
This is a huge opportunity for new home buyers. In addition to the income tax break that we are giving to 22 million Canadians. Those are affordability measures that will help first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Honourable member for York, Durham.
Own data paints a very different picture. A Canada where quickly first-time homeowners can't hope to buy a home unless their parents owned one before them. In fact, over 40% of new home buyers relied on a gift or inheritance to make their first purchase. And the average amount of that gift, Mr. Speaker, was $74,000. That's not a small boost, Mr. Speaker. That's the only way in for people into the market now. Is the Minister of Housing content with a system where unless you're born rich, you'll die renting?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Speaker, well, the member opposite seems to be ignoring the fact that there is a GST break coming for new home buyers, $50,000.
That's right.
This is nothing that was introduced by the members opposite. There were no measures like this. When I was the mayor of Vancouver for 7 years, there was no GST break from this government opposite. Those inactions by members opposite have led us into this crisis. This government will get us out of it.
Member for York Centre.
My North Toronto constituents cannot afford a home. After 10 years of the Liberals, house prices doubled, down payments doubled, mortgage payments doubled, and rents doubled. New home sales in Toronto are at a record low, lower than they were during the housing crash of the 1990s. But the Minister of Housing is on record saying he doesn't want to lower the price of housing. My question to the Minister, why does he think that young people should not be able to afford a home in the City of Toronto?
Great question. Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, hearing this concern from across the floor gives me confidence that the members opposite will support a GST cut for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, they should.
I hope that that same support will also extend from the members opposite for partnerships with the cities, with the communities, with Indigenous communities, provinces and territories to be good partners as federal government and deliver affordability measures to make housing affordable in Canada.
L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Pontiac, Kitty-on-Zibi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that during difficult times, the Canada Dental Care Plan can offer real support to seniors, but also families in my riding. Since the end of May, this program has been open to all Canadians earning less than $90,000 a year. So my question to the Minister of Health. She update us on this latest phase of the program and what efforts are being made to make the program accessible. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. She is correct. The dental care plan is changing Canadians' lives. Since the plan has been brought in, more than 2 million Canadians have been able to access these services. And since May 29th of this year, all eligible Canadians between 18 and 64 can receive these services. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Fiscal.
Mr. Speaker, a news report today details how the residents of Chicopee Terrace, an apartment complex in Kitchener, are banding together to patrol their parking lot as the Liberal crime wave intensifies. Jason Souza, the leader of the group, says that he and his neighbors have had the catalytic converter stolen out of their cars. So not only are car thefts up, but now they're stealing the parts out of the cars they don't take. I have a very simple question. This is not the Kitchener I grew up in. Why don't we go back to how it was? Why doesn't the Liberal Justice Minister simply repeal his soft on crime Bill C-75?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, dangerous people who commit violent crimes should be treated with serious consequences. That's why we are putting new measures in place to strengthen the bail regime, including for auto theft, including for home invasions, including for human trafficking. We're also introducing stiffer penalties for serious violent repeat offenders. Mr. Speaker, we are going to work with facts and reason. I hope when we advance these measures to help protect the communities, we garner the support of the Conservative Party.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton, Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, during the election campaign, people at the doors told me they are fed up with crime. With violent crime up 50%, many folks are afraid to walk around in their own city. This year, Edmontonians were shocked when a 13-year-old boy was stabbed to death at a transit station. People know this chaos is a direct result of the Liberals' soft-on-crime laws. So when will the Prime Minister stop the crime, lock up the criminals by repealing Trudeau's Bill C-5 and Bill C-75?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, obviously when you hear the details of our horrific crime as the member has shared, this is not a partisan issue. All members of this House care equally about the well-being and safety of Canadians and believe that Canadians should feel safe in their communities. What's clear, though, is the member has not even read the legislation that he criticizes in this House, for if he did, he would know that he's advocating to make it easier for people who commit intimate partner violence to get out on bail. Mr. Speaker, it's important we deal with details and facts in this House. I encourage the member for once to read the legislation before he forms an opinion.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, as I rise for the first time in the House, I thank the good people of Abbotsford South Langley for placing their trust in me. Soft-on-crime Liberals have caused havoc in my community. The family and law enforcement I met during the election are frustrated with seeing offenders released quickly only to reoffend. Last week in Vancouver, a man was charged with sexually assaulting a teenage girl while he was already on probation for sexual assault. Repeat violent offenders have it too easy from the Liberal government. Will the Prime Minister stop the crime, lock up the criminals, and repeal Trudeau's Bill C-5 and C-75?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate the member on rising in this House for the first time and on his recent election. There's something that we agree on. Violent repeat offenders should have a harder time getting out on bail. But what's interesting,
but yet, though, you let them out on bail, right?
Where he's dealing
Tell you,
with
they
somebody
meet their
who
own
could be
Canadian. They
released
won't be
for
going
committing
fucking
potentially
anywhere, I
intimate
tell you
partner
that.
violence. He then criticizes
Except
the
in a
very
fucking
law that
box.
makes it harder for that person to get bail. We're going to move forward with new reforms that make a stricter bail regime for violent home invasion, for people who participate in auto theft, for people who are engaged in human trafficking. Mr. Speaker, I hope that Conservatives will vote in favour of strengthening the bail regime.
The Honourable Member for Toronto St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, it's Pride Month. It's a time to celebrate the 2S LGBTQI+ community and recognize their many accomplishments. But we also know that the rise in hate targeting this community has left many feeling unsafe. Could the Minister of Women and Gender Equality share how the government plans to continue ensuring that everyone can live openly, safely, and with dignity?
The Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate the honourable member for taking her seat in this place. It's always a privilege in this House to stand, and I'd like to thank the constituents of Mississauga-Streetsville, my family and volunteers for putting their trust in me. Pride season celebrates the resilience and contributions of the 2S LGBTQI+ community across this country. Yet too many people face hate and discrimination for being themselves. Our new government will provide security funding for their Pride celebrations this year to ensure everyone is safe. We all deserve to live openly, with dignity, and without fear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, violent crime is up 50%, gun crime up 16%, gang homicide up 78%, auto theft up 46%, and extortion up 357%. This government insists on putting repeat violent offenders back into our communities, unleashing crime, chaos, and disorder. Will the Prime Minister stop the crime and lock up the criminals by repealing Trudeau's Bill C-5 and C-75?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we introduced a new bill in order to ensure the safety and security of our borders. And I invite my friend opposite to support, as well as the Conservative Party to support this bill. This bill will ensure the safety and security of Canadians on our streets. It'll cut the flow of fentanyl, ensure that our guns are off the streets, as well as making sure that money laundering is addressed in a very serious way. So I invite the Conservative Party to support this bill, pass this bill expeditiously in order to keep our community safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The Prime Minister, out of the left side of his mouth, said his first focus is on deeply affordable housing. Then, out of the right side, he said they will fundamentally rely on the private sector to build it. Yet, as a banker and former chair of Brookfield Asset Management, he should instinctively know that big developers' first priorities is to maximize profit. Deeply affordable homes will not just magically materialize. Will the Prime Minister commit to bringing back a national co-op and social housing program with deep core subsidies now?
Here, here. Well, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member for her question. So, this government is very focused on affordable housing. And we look forward to working with all members of this House to deliver from the new government of Canada affordable housing for the affordable end of the spectrum, from supportive housing, social housing, co-op housing. We need to focus where the need is greatest. That is where we will focus. We will work with the private sector to help deliver on market housing and rental, but the stress has to be on the most affordable housing for those who need it.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, postal workers across the country continue to serve Canadians in every corner of our nation, through snowstorms, through uncertainty, and even through a global pandemic. And yet, Canada Post continues to undermine this essential service, pushing Canadians to privatize services, refusing to address working conditions, and stripping postal workers of their right to free and collective bargaining. Mr. Speaker, why is the government allowing management to tear apart our postal system and delay negotiations with CUP W members who are simply asking for a fair deal?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, for Jobs and Families.
First of all, we do thank the postal workers who every single day service our communities. But I will say this, the best deal is the deal that the parties arrive at themselves. Federal mediators continue to work with the parties on a solution, and we know that Canadians are relying on them to get this right.
And that concludes questions.